So during today at work, I did this conversion. So if people have watched me edit levels in the game before, the walls that I place around are like 1 by 1 cubes, right? So all these little cubes would be individual entities. And that was getting real bad for big maps. So I finished a thing where we have this thing called a wall set, which is basically a grid of walls with like a bit field that says which squares of the grid are occupied. And so now, like, for example, this is one entity here, right? That's one entity. That's one entity. And I ran an auto converter today on all the levels. And, you know, we created some wall sets and deleted some walls. And on net, we deleted 91,000 entities from the game. So that's great. And over the last little bit of time, I've been working on the editor. So, you know, I used to hit the X key. Again, people who have seen me do level design have seen me do this. You would hit the X key and like it would sort of raycast and place 1 cube at a time. You could still do that. But see how it's sort of got this wireframe that happens before the cube goes down? That's like this mode where you can, you know, make a bunch of things, right? And it sort of adds it to whichever, see how I got the white there and the dark brown there? It adds it to whichever wall set that you raycast it against to start with, or it'll make a new one. So if I do the water over here, this is just a new one. So that's what I've been doing lately during my day job. How many are there now? How many entities? I don't actually know. I have no idea. We could write something that counts, but nah. Anyway, so here's the thing, is I ran this auto converter on the world. And so like, or on all the levels. So if I go to some level like overworld, right? This now will have been automatically converted. And the thing is, I didn't really put any limits on the size of any individual, we're probably processing textures right now. I didn't put any limits on the size of any individual wall set. And the thing is, you probably do want to chunk them up for ease of editing. Like this is probably all 1 down here, yeah. And that's probably a little too big for practical purposes. So like what I would do, or something you're going to want to do anyway, right, is you're going to want to be able to do split operations. Like, for example, I just want this to be a different chunk from this. And how do I do that? And I feel like I haven't exactly decided, but the best idea that I have so far is, you know, the same way that we raycast to figure out where to do something for this, we could raycast and then add a thing that says, hey, there's going to be like a splitting plane here, right? And we could just like draw the splitting plane. And then I'm not sure how to indicate that. Maybe like if you just tap it and then release, you're just visualizing it and you don't actually do it. But if you like move the cursor outside, it like goes into a, we're actually going to split mode, right? And then when you release, it like actually cuts it into 2 entities. And that's what I want to do tonight, right? I want to have that working. So there's several things. So we need to do the UI for the split mode. We need to actually successfully split the entities. And then we need to resize the entities. And the question is, what do we do about positioning? Like, do we reposition? Because there's going to be, I guess we reposition both of them. So right now, when I auto created these, I picked whatever cube was closest to the middle, and I said like, hey, that's the center, right? If I split here, that's going to be way toward the edge of this one, and it'll be outside this one. So if I copy the old like center for both of them, it's over time it could evolve to be a very unintuitive center. So I guess I'll just automatically pick a new center for both of them. I'm not 100% sure about that, but we'll see. We can do these things in steps. So let me actually write down the steps, right? So we want split UI. We want to actually split. We want resize results and recenter results. That doesn't sound too bad, but we'll see. Someone's surprised that I use pen and paper. New person to the stream, I see. Yeah, no, these birds they're a particle system that's in the level. I don't know why. I guess someone wanted to have birds. Maybe it's a test. I don't know. Okay. So that's the plan. And let's just make a level. So usually, you know, I have this level called Bardstone test, which, like, historically, oh, do I not have this level anymore? What's going on? Oh, I spelled it wrong. So historically, this is just a level that I mess around on. Why is it called Bardstone test? Because I was testing a particular thing one day. But now, yeah, let's make it a non-wrapping level. That's another thing to do maybe later is investigate wrapping with wall set. I'm not sure that that's going to behave correctly. Interestingly. Okay. So it's not a wrapping level. Let's make some more walls that we might want to split, you know. We're just, this is going to be our splitting test area. Wow, it's so much easier to make levels. Why didn't I do this before? It only took me like not even a very hard working day to put this UI in. It's so easy, man. All right, that's enough to play with. All right, great. Okay. Whoops. So this will just start us there. Could I show off some cool new visuals? Was there any progress on water? No, we've been working on other stuff. We have not touched the water in a while, sadly. What do I mean by split? I mean split it into two different, see, this is one object here. What if I actually, so what if this up here is actually like a more complicated thing, right? And then I decide, oh, all this needs to be 5 squares up, not 3 squares up. Like I want to move it all. And, you know, you could, or maybe I even just want to make this part a different color or put it somewhere else in the map. The most versatile way is to have something that says, well, let's just split this chunk off from this chunk, like around here, right? and then go. You know what I'm saying? So now about the interface for splitting. I was thinking that we would do it by ray casting and picking the face, but in something like this, you don't really have that available. But I wonder, like, we could pick an edge instead, right? We could say, hey, you're close to an edge. Not sure. Not sure which way to do it. Let me just look at some of these. So with this one, if I wanted to split this off on top, if it was a face-based projection, I would have to move the camera down under there, which is annoying, whereas here I could just aim at the edge, right? With this one, it's just doing the edge thing. It might be more annoying to program right now. But it would like let me split this in half. It's probably the right thing, if I'm being honest. And we could cheap it out a little bit. We could, because you're going to hit one of these cubes if you're pointing at one of these. So instead of like doing some weird thing that that like checks all the edges in the mesh or something, we could just take the cube you hit with the raycast and then say, what's the closest edge? Pick two cube and split with the face between them. Well, you shouldn't have to pick two cubes. You should just be able to point at the edge, in my opinion. The thing is, I don't know if I have distance between ray and line in this code, so I might have to go hunting for it, or I might have to rederive it. And that's annoying because it would be one of the first things that we would do. Because we basically have to decide this now, because we can't really do the other stuff. I mean, we could do the other stuff, but we wouldn't have visible results for a long time. Like doing the UI is the most natural first thing. How do you manage memory? Do you use some custom allocator? We use a couple different allocators depending on what's happening. If you hit a face and it's like less than 0.1 or greater than 0.9, then you use the edges plane. That's a good point. I mean, we can actually cheese it, right? And not actually do line. Because you have to not only do line closeness, you also have to figure out which one's in front, because you might hit multiple line segments, right? Which is not that much worse, but it's just annoying. So if I can do something lame first and upgrade it later, then this is okay. So let me think. If we actually have an intersection point on the cube, then we can say, we can do a function that says, you know, what is the distance of each x, y, and z from 0.5? And whoever is unambiguously, like you could end up in a corner, right? Where it's like, oh, both of them, but we would just like ignore the corners. So we would have some fuzz around here, like around 0.1 or 0.07, where if you go past that, we don't register you, right? So you have to be like away from the corner and in here, then you're unambiguously on that edge, right? So we would say, how many of the coordinates are, like less than k or greater than 1 minus k, right? And if there's more than one, that's no good, right? If there's only one, then that sort of tells us the edge. I'm just wondering if there's ambiguity, like, so having an edge by itself doesn't tell you a splitting plane, right? Because there's two possible planes, that align to this grid. So if I point at this edge, it's like, well, there's a horizontal plane, right? And then there's this plane that we see right here. And like, how do we know that we don't mean the other one, right? How do we pick that one from code? Like if I have something like this, and I point here, like, okay, like say I point here at this edge. Do I mean split this off, or do I mean split this off? It's actually ambiguous. So maybe we don't do it with edges right now. Maybe we do it with planes. With planes, it's unambiguous. It's like, look, I hit this side of this cube. The plane containing that cube is the splitting plane. Like the only reason that this seems unambiguous is because we don't have other geometry. But like remember I was saying, what if we point at this edge and say split it? Well, what if we have this, right? And I point at this edge and say split it. Do we mean this or do we mean this? You know what I'm saying? Drag a box and then cut and paste. No, I don't think that would be very fun. Try it both ways and play test it. It's not just a matter of trying it both ways. Like you have to make the code actually decide which of these you mean. I could say it's the plane that is most facing you, right? That might make the most sense. So it's like you go to do this split and it's the plane. Well, it's the plane that's most parallel to your vector, right? To your view vector, or actually to your cursor vector, I guess. This is more annoying than if I just did the face split, but I feel like it's better. Why not add a hotkey to define split orientation? Because that's confusing and no one's ever going to figure out how to use it. We're not writing Git here, people. We're writing something that people have to be able to use and enjoy using. It should be perpendicular to the face you're clicking. That should be easy to do. But that's the point, is that there are two different planes orthogonal to the face that you're clicking. Or, oh, I see. Right. I guess not, like in this case, for example, no, it's true. It's like one of them is parallel to the face and the other one's orthogonal, right? So you would pick the orthogonal one, which would cut here. The thing is, what if I just move my mouse by a couple pixels and hit here? Then that's a different splitting plane. I don't think I like that, you know, just because we go to the different face. I think I like it better to just say it's the split plane that aligns most with your cursor vector. So if I'm down here, I want to split this way and cut off the top. And if I move so that I'm up here, I want to split that way and cut off the side. Like, that seems understandable to me. Especially if we draw what's going to happen. Show a pop-up? No. No. All right. So we're going to do what I just said. Even though, actually, no, you know what we're going to do? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to do the very first thing that I said wasn't that good. And the reason is because it's easier and it lets us implement the whole thing end to end. And then almost everything that we do will port over when we want to do edge picking. So we're going to do plane picking. So in this case, if I want to split by this plane, I just pick that plane, right? And if I want to split by this off of here, I have to inconveniently go down here, right? And the thing is, what do we need to do there? We need to do ray casting, hit the thing. We need to draw the plane. We need to do all the split operations, right? Literally, the only thing that's different is how we decide what plane it is, which will be trivial in the initial version because we have the plane, right? And will be less trivial later. Okay, that's what we're going to do. Guys, chat is so tiring sometimes. This reminds me of why I don't stream that much anymore. All right. So we're going to do this. Let's save out our cube place. So we're going to have this split wall interactive start. And I'm just going to kind of start copying it from place wall. Right. So we're going to find entity under cursor. That part's the same. If it's a wall set, I still don't trust operator precedence in my life for some reason. I like parentheses. So then we're going to say wall set is down. So this just casts it to a wall set, right? So not colon equals. And so if you miss, we're just not going to make a visual indicator. So you have to raycast and actually hit a wall set. Okay. So we're going to get cube position and normal. What's that true? Want neighbor cube. Oh, right. We don't really want the position anyway. We just... Okay. This is going to be the position of the cube. So we're going to say P. This is going to be the center of the cube. So we're going to say P is position plus... Okay, this is going to be really stupid because all this stuff for these wall sets is all in integer coordinates because it's grid aligned and we want to be fast and stuff. But we're going to do this split in floating point because why not? Because it doesn't matter if it's fast. All right, so position plus normal times 0.5. That's going to get us from the center to the edge of the cube. All right, and then we're going to do instead of calling another helper down here. Well, okay, we'll do it. Activate split wall with P and normal and set ID. All right. So here we're just storing some stuff because we want to draw the UI while you're holding the key down. So when you press the key, we do the picking, and then we keep that position in normal constant till you release the key, because we don't want this particular UI changing around as you move the mouse pointer around, right? So we're going to do this. Split wall active, split wall set ID, split wall plane point, split wall plane normal. All right. All right, let's put split wall differently. This is place wall stuff. This is split wall stuff. Okay. So we do that. So to draw the splitting plane, I'm going to want the axes that are orthonormal. Which I think I pick these. I think, let's look at plane E1. Yeah. So here we go. I have to sneeze. If you drag from one visible cube to another, the principal direction of the drag gives you the split plane normal, and the endpoint of the drag gives you the plane position. I mean, we could do that. I don't know about that. I mean, maybe. What if there are multiple protrusions over the splitting plane? Do they all get cut? Yes, right now they will. If we want more sophisticated splits, we could think about that later. But the thing is, we are not a tools company, we are a game company, and you could easily rat hole on trying to make the best, most amazing possible tool. And often what happens if you do that is it actually, you end up making something overcomplicated that people kind of don't really use. That has definitely happened with us before. So you really want to only add things that are going to be necessary and helpful to people. You don't want to imagine all the cool things that your tool could do, right? That's not so good. Not so good. It's even worse than Yagni, right? It's you ain't gonna need it, and also it makes everything harder to understand and more annoying to program in the future, right? Like you want to keep your code as simple as you can, man. Is the compiler language done? No, it's not done. It's done enough to use for me. Yeah. Okay. So here, I don't like the fact that E1 is the normal. I usually think of E3, whatever. Okay. So here we're going to go, do I not already have this? See, here we're just sort of saying, you know, pick some other vectors, right? And then cross product to, or like if this was the second vector, then take the cross product to get what E3 would be, and then figure out which of those is closest to the forward or is aligned with the forward vector. If it's not, then reverse it, right? Anyway. The logic behind this choice is just because you're sort of dragging, when you're making these cubes, you're sort of dragging the cursor in 2D, right? Oops, there we go. You're dragging the cursor in 2D, and the question is, what does that mean? So we pick a plane, and so E1 is the normal always of where you clicked on. That's this big greenish vector. And E2 in the code we were just looking at is the yellow. And what that code is doing is saying, what's the best direction for yellow to go? Is it that way, or is it actually up this way? And what we say is like, well, the plane is broader to the camera if yellow is to the right, so that's what we're picking. You know, because if you're edge on to something, you don't want that to be the direction that you drag the thing, right? So, you know, it's not that obvious of a heuristic when you're in cases where the angles are close, but when you're in cases where the angles are edge on, there's like an obvious best choice, right? So that's how we deal with the fact that the cursor input is 2D. I'm not sure how learnable that is for users. I'm hoping it'll be learnable. So I think it's very easy to understand dragging out from the face. And then you can look at the yellow vector and it shows you what's the second direction, right? So now the question that I have is, you know, what this is basically doing is giving us an orthonormal basis, right? And then the E3 is just the cross product of the E1 and E2 that we picked. Why do you need to know E3? It's because we're drawing these cubes. So you need to offset in all 3 dimensions. So we need to know what the third dimension is. And we could cross product every time we want it, but we don't do that. Okay, so the question is, do we want to repurpose any of this? I mean, if we're saying that we're already picking the E2 that is orthogonal to the camera, or the most, what would you call it? The most, like I said, the most broad to the camera, I guess. And here again, it's very close, so it's like it's not that obvious, but like here, it's like, yeah, very obvious. And then here, yeah, it's also very obvious. So can we just use this same code basically, right? And instead of using E2, we just use E3. Is that like, or no, we just, I guess since we know E1's the normal, then we just use the E2 and E3 that this code gives us back. And right now we don't actually care which one because we just want the plane formed by both of those. Or actually by the point in E1, yeah, so that's fine. If we just want this to draw the UI, it's fine. We have everything we need. It doesn't matter which one is E2 and which one is E3. What I'm thinking about is for later with the edge cutting thing, I think we could use the E1, E3 plane in that case. And like actually a lot of our work is done for us and it would be sort of, you know, consistent with this other thing. I'm not completely sure that that gives us the same result in all cases, but it seems like it. No, in this case, it would be the E1, E2 plane. So it's not the same. So we may have to get more serious about that later. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Get best E2, E3. All right. Get best E2 and E3. All right. And that's not colon equals because those are things. Okay. E2 and E3. Okay. All right. So I want to make sure that none of these plain underscore e whatevers sneak into here, because those are file scope variables. Yeah, see, that would have been bad if I didn't search for that. All right, so we've factored that out. So when we activate split wall, where's my declaration for frickin'? I thought I just searched. Oh, I put a space. Yeah, okay. I'm going to do these. I'm going to call these split. I could use the same variables and say, hey, you're in one mode or the other mode. But if we get flashy later and like want to fade one out while we fade the other in, you kind of don't want to overwrite the state variables of the other mode and so forth. Tab to switch secondary planes. No. No. Just add more controls that people have to memorize. No problem. Well, okay. So to be fair, that is the right thing to do sometimes, right? So I get very frustrated with Apple UIs because they're all about just like magically doing something and you can't control what it does. And by the way, what it does is usually wrong and annoying and bad. So I don't like that. But I think in this case, it is not necessary to add another control. So I'm going to do it without doing that. If that turns out not to be true, if it turns out to be difficult to know what the hell's going on, and adding a separate control will help people know what's going on, which is often not actually true, but could be true. If that's true, then we'll look at that. But for now, no, it's automated. Can I give an example of an Apple interface doing something wrong and bad? Yes. Like, how about when it changes the words that I type and doesn't let me change them back? And then I go delete what it put and retype exactly what I wanted, and it changes it fucking back again to the thing that I just deleted. How about that? That's a good example. All right. So we're going to say split wall E1. Wait, was it called split? Split plane E1 is normal. Split plane E2, split plane E3 is get best E2 and E3 of normal. Okay, get best. There we go. All right. So we set these, we have a point. Let's just call it split plane. I mean, I'm being a little inconsistent with my prefixes, but whatever. Okay, so this is great. And now I want to get to the point where we actually have something on the screen. All right. So so when we release the key, we call end, and this will stop drawing things. So now we go draw split wall. We're just going to draw a frickin' arrow right now. Where do I draw the arrows? Okay. Oops. Dude. What is happening? I can't type. Okay. Split plane position. That's going to be the arrow start. We're just going to copy this stuff. We're probably going to change all of this, but I just want something on the screen to verify that everything that we have so far is working, and then we'll make it better. So arrow length times split plane E1, right? I should also have, yeah, split plane normal. I'm not sure if I set both normal and E1. I do. Okay, great. Okay. So we have an arrow start, we have an arrow end, we have a radius, and we draw arrow, right? We're gonna make this a big, thick arrow that is purple. Okay, split plane position. Split plane point. Okay, forward and set ID. All right, and then forward, rights. Well, just put this into there. All right. So let's see if we actually have something. What about selecting which plane you are by dragging the face that was selected? Dragging in what direction? Exactly. If it's in an inconvenient direction that you can't necessarily see, then that is annoying, right? Okay, so this is our cube thing. I just wanted to make sure that that is not broken anymore, right? And then C is, there we go. That's a really thick arrow. I don't know why it's, oh, because we don't set the texture. That's why it came out black. So we're getting this split. I'm a little bit worried because it doesn't look to me like it starts in the place that I wanted. Like it looks to me like it starts inside the cube. Yeah, that's weird. I thought we had made, maybe we're passing the wrong position. Yeah, so let's check that out. Because I want the splitting plane to be at the edge of the cube, right? Because I don't want things, I don't want centers of cubes to be like plus or minus epsilon from the plane. I want it to be very clear. Okay, so let's do this. So split plane point, that's activate split wall with P. I mean, maybe that's not what get cube position and normal returns. No, this looks to me like it returns the middle of the cube. I am confused. We're just going to print those because that's how we do things downtown. All right, so if I'm here, hey, we got a purple now. Position P. Oh. What's going on? Okay, if I do it over here, it'll be right. Sort of. Okay, so what's going on is our coordinate system is a little bit funny, right? The cube is centered in x and y. So the integer coordinate for whatever index you're at is at the center of the cube in x and y, but the bottom of the cube in z. So we're adding 0.5, but that doesn't get us to the top of the cube here, right? Here, we're adding 0.5 to x, and that gets us to the edge of the cube, but we're not adding anything in z, right? So we actually always want to go up a half a cube in z to get to the center of the cube, and then we add the normal of the direction in whatever. All right, take out our print. Thought for the UI, press whichever key you use to activate the mode, and the currently selected object gets 6 dots, 1 per face. You select the dot you want and can stretch to make copies in that direction. Copies? This lets you draw a cube in whatever plane. Oh, you mean for making cubes? I don't feel like we have a problem needing a massive amount of anything except cubes, right? So again, and all of these cubes are invisible in the shipping game, so let's not forget that. Yeah, I mean, if I see what you're saying. I mean, if we need to make mass amounts of random things, that would be a thing to consider, but I don't think we're probably going to do that. All right, so that's a good arrow. That's a good arrow. That's that. All right. So why is that not drawing? That's weird. I feel, oh, you know what? We might have a culling problem. Like, I think the bounding radius for this is not getting set correctly. So that, like, this is a problem you have in games sometimes. Like, if it's not correct about the view culling for this, then when the center is far enough off the screen, you won't hit it anymore. Although that's not happening now. So I'm not sure what was going on there, but anyway. Great. So now I want to make a UI where we draw the plane that we're going to split by. And then moving the cursor a certain amount is like, yes, I want to do that. So that if you just tap without moving the cursor, it's like not an actual split. so how do I want to do this? My only real UI primitive that I have right now is drawing these frickin' arrows. We should make it, they're not even correct. Like, I don't know what's going on there. There's like a mess there. I don't know what's happening. But I think it's just not sorted. So I could like just draw something made out of arrows. And I can say, I can draw like a square that corresponds to the distance. At which you're going, right? And then when that is like more than some amount from where you started, then it'll like lock and say, hey, we're gonna do this. All right. So let's see. So what we're going to do, so we know the plane equation, right, is basically determined by the point at the base of this arrow and the arrow direction. And given that, we can take the intersection of the view direction with that plane, right? And that gives us a new point. And we can start by just drawing that point we'll just do an arrow from here to wherever the cursor meets that plane. And once we have that working, then we go on to the next step. Okay, so we have this, which is in Casey spelling. We already have a variable called result up here. So this is going to be the plane normal. I'm doing this in the wrong place. Let's put this in the draw, and then we will factor it out later. Split plane normal, split plane point, and pause and dir. Right, so we're going to do this. If hit, we will draw another arrow. And is P. We're just going to make it the same color. All right. All right, so there we go. So this thing, we're just raycasting every frame to, no, I'm a little worried now. I'm worried. What? Like, doesn't it look like this arrow kind of points up a lot? It should just be really short. Like, what? Because the plane, let me go to much more of an angle. I guess it's fine. I guess that's just an artifact of the way we're drawing the arrow and it not sorting. It sort of looks like the arrowhead is changing directions when in reality it's correct. See, it's not like pointing up or down. Although maybe it is kind of pointing up. Oh, you know, I can just print to be sure. So basically the z coordinate of that should always be the z coordinate of the cube that I am hitting, right? Let's put this down here so we can see it. And yeah, so that's at z equals 1. See that down at the bottom window there? Z equals 2, right? Yeah, so it's an optical illusion that the arrow, see, if we had better arrow drawing, there we go. See, it's still z equals 2. It's just far away. Okay, so that's great. Now, instead of that, I'm going to do a goofy circle. We'll do both right now. We'll say circle radius is going to be distance from arrow start to P, right? That's fine. And then we're going to say draw a circle from do we have a draw circle? I can just make one out of arrows, but I guess we don't. That's kind of weird. Draw a circle in paint panel. Am I going to like that circle? That's like a filled fan. We don't want that. All right, we're going to do our own. So we're going to draw a circle from arrow start to at circle radius. Oh, we need a split plane. What's it called? Split plane E2. Because to define, you need to say what plane the circle is in, right? Circle radius, line radius. All right. And a color, circle color, right? So circle color is going to be V4. Going to be a yellow circle. All right. So we're going to draw a circle, and what is draw a circle? Well, all right. We're just going to draw a bunch of arrows. So we're going to say n is like 100 for 1 to n. Theta 0 is, yeah. Right? CT is cosine theta, ST is sine theta. If you've done enough game programming, you should be able to just, like, you know, just do this, right? From memory. So we get a cosine and a sine, just like you would, right? But because we're in 3D, we then want to say, we're going to go around the circle segment by segment, right? So we're going to say P0 is center plus E1 times CT plus E2 times ST, right? So that's sine of theta, cosine theta and sine theta. So this is like the x-axis, that's like the y-axis. Then our next point, I don't remember, see there's a minus sign in here. It's in the first, it's this, right? Yes, I believe that's right. Anyway, so then I'm just going to draw a frickin' arrow. We can do better drawing primitives much later, right? So we're going to go from P0 to P1 by color and line radius, right? There we go. Oops, theta. I could make a d theta. People might ask, hold on. People might ask, why don't you make a d theta? And the answer is, and just figure out theta 0 or just multiply d theta by n. And the answer is, I want exactly the same number repeatedly as I iterate through this. You could generate n cosine and sine values and store them. I'm just saying screw it and not doing that. But I want bitwise exact results. So these multiplies will give us that, whereas generating something in a multiply and then adding something is not guaranteed to do that, right? So see, I'm being stupid. This is like not even, this is how tired I am. We didn't even have to do the hard thing. We're going around the circle the same way. This is the thing that gives you the orthogonal vector, right? My brain went there and started doing that. That's not what we want to do. We just want two vectors that are different steps along the same sequence along the circle. Boy, I'm dumb sometimes. All right. So here, and there we go. So that's a circle at a given radius, and that's going to be our activation radius, right? So our next step is just going to be we'll draw the circle kind of dim if our vector is inside, and then once we cross that boundary, we'll draw it brightly. Right? right? So so we're going to say circle color is, I don't know, 3.3, 0.03, right? But if oh, you know, this is wrong. Why is our radius constant? Oh, because it's 1.0. Ha ha. Okay. Okay. Let's make it a little bit further, like 1.1. So this is going to be outer radius, right? So I mean, I could do this times times circle radius, right? So we had a radius 1.0 circle because we didn't put the factor in. Oh, whoops, I left an if. I left an if. Okay, if current radius is greater than or equal to outer radius, will make the circle color bright. All right. All right, so there we go. See, that's great. Okay, let's get rid of this big arrow in the middle because that's not very meaningful. So by the way, in none of this do we currently, we're drawing like translucent things with depth testing off. And like, I'm not going to change any of that right now. So things will not, at some point, we're going to want to do something better than that for our editor widgets, but we don't right now. So yeah. Anyway. So now I think I just want another circle for our current position. So we're going to get rid of this giant arrow. And then, okay. Let's say outer color. Right. And then we're going to have a current color, which is also going to get brighter. So that's going to be current radius. It's going to be a thinner circle. And okay, so current color is V4. It's going to be like a milder yellow, and then current color is I don't know. We're going to make it like white. I don't know, dude. I never know what I'm doing. I never know what I am doing. All right, so here we go. We've got a circle. And boom, boom. That's like not, it's like not a visible enough change. But that's sort of the basic idea, right? Is you'd like pull it out, and then that's a split. I guess we'll lock, we could lock the radius. and make the color flashy. The other thing is, okay, see, we're doing this draw arrow function, and the draw arrow function is kind of messing with us by hard-codedly drawing these arrowheads in a brighter. So I'm going to continue. Using draw arrow, but I'm going to hack it for a second. We're going to say draw line instead of draw arrow. Right. Where does draw arrow live? So we're going to have line only. I'm going away from Casey spelling, right? And so then draw line is just going to be draw arrow from to color radius true, right? So like at some point we're going to rewrite all this. May or may not be before shipping the game, but okay. Okay. Actually, that one should be draw line, but this one is probably still draw arrow. Okay. All right. Oh, wait, I certainly left something out. Oh, I guess that's actually kind of interesting. I mean, I didn't intend for that, but like, doesn't that look a little more sophisticated? And then it can turn solid when it's done? You know what I'm saying? Look, Casey wrote this code, so like, I'm sure he chose the terminology very carefully. Like this draw arrow stuff is copied over from the witness. Let me see. Yeah, you know what? I bet I just copy this over. Instead of doing this, I just do this. Oh, there's my other orthonormal basis function. So now, So this is just this. Probably. So now if I did that right, that won't give us the dotted effect. Whoa, okay. We did something incorrect. I mean, that's cool and all. See, graphics is fun sometimes because you do a bad thing and, you know. I mean, let's be clear. This is a much clearer signal of what we're doing than what I had a second ago. But, yeah. I don't know why he didn't just say, like, x0 here. This is weird. All right. Okay, let's look. See, I was trying to do this without looking very carefully at what I was doing. Oh, shaft is unit now. I don't really know. I don't feel like that's really going to fix it. Totally. Oh, it did. Okay. So this is great. And so now I'm going to say dot factor right, and all right. So when we're here, we're going to say dotted factor is like 0.5. And, you know, I feel like the other circle, the line radius, all right. So, what was I doing? Dotted factor is going to be like 0.65. Dotted factor is 1. You might want to adjust those. So we've got it. It's dotted. Boom, it's solid. Dotted, solid, dotted. Yeah, that's pretty solid. I mean, you know, we can obviously make this look better later. But like, this is good enough for government work right now, right? So it's like, hey, we're going to do it. Should I clamp the outer size? I don't know. Boom. Boom. You know, it's so great that these days I could do 3D stuff that when I started in games, like, this probably wouldn't have taken me days, but there was definitely, like, finding intersections between things was hard to think about. But because I've read very good books since then, like, for example, Linear Algebra Done Right, one of the best math books ever made. Yeah, it's much easier to think about these things. Do I even need the vector now? I was thinking about that. Probably not. Let's try commenting it out and seeing how it looks. Sheldon Axler has a new book about real analysis that is about to be released. Interesting. I wonder how it is. You know, he had some other math book that was not linear algebra done right, and it was more like a regular textbook, and I just I wasn't into it, you know. Yeah, I mean, this makes sense, right? Okay. So now we will do the actual split. Like, this would just be better if the circle like got quasi hidden by the geometry, you know. We're going to want that at some point. All right, this is good enough though. What are these circles doing? Well, right now they're just being drawn. But the next step is the next step. We're going to do some splitting action. Okay, so we don't need this arrow end anymore, right? Yeah. Okay, so when we complete the operation, then well, we're going to do the following thing. Okay, here's an interesting thing. Let's just, as our first step, we're going to say we're going to erase everything on that side of the splitting plane, right? So we're going to say for only set in, okay, well, hold on. Manager is open entity manager. While set is find manager split. What's it called? Split wall set ID, right? It may have been destroyed while we were doing this, right? So if for wall set entity, whoops, it's underscore because this is not cast to a wall set. I could have a utility function that finds a thing of a specific type, but I never wrote that, so I just do this by hand every time. Not equal to wall set. It could have been deleted and a new thing with the same ID, but a different type could have been created, so that's no good. There is an ABA problem here where maybe you deleted it and created a new wall set of the same type. Yeah, we're not worried about that. Return. Okay, so wall set is down, wall set. Like, it would be worth making a function that does this. I just don't want to do it right now. So now this only set is the thing that we demoed before about iterating bit arrays, right? Because this has dots bits, I believe it's called, right? Now, let's say num modified, that's going to be an integer, right? So now we're going to want to get the coordinates, right? So remember, we did this. We have this only set that iterates here. Now here's the thing. I had remove assert false, but what if we just have it clear the bit? I mean, is that... Like, do we dare do that? So you could just say remove on the bit. Oh, because we have to write it back. Let's just do it. I want to do this just for the lulz, right? So, right, if we don't write it back, then we'll just throw it away because this is copied into a local thing. So anyway, if you say remove, we're going to put this in. Oh, except, see, I mean, if we're iterating over the unset version and we remove, should that be the set version? All right, now, you know what? I'm not going to do this for now because it's just a little bit unclear what would be the coolest thing to do. We won't do that for now. Is the ABA problem the one with the monkey suit? Yes. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to say to remove to clear is an array of int to clear.allocator. It's in temporary storage, so it's reasonably fast. So for things that are set, we're going to get the coordinates, right? So index 2 get index, position from index, that's what I was looking for. iPod, this is the integer position, because I have this vector 3i that's like a vector 3, but it's integers. Position from index, wall set wall data index. So that gives us the integer position, plus oh no, okay, this already adds the corner. Okay, we don't need to add anything. So this gives us the position in the entity space, right? So world pos is object to world space wall set, because it could be rotated, it could be translated. This is just the position within the wall data structure. This is the position in the world, right? So from wall set to v3 ipos. So we're making it from an integer 3, vector 3 to a float vector 3, right? And then plain dot is dot product world pos minus split plane point by split plane normal, right? So that dot will be greater than or equal to 0 if we're on the facing side of the plane, right? It'll be less than 0 if we're behind the plane. Unless, of course, I'm doing this wrong. Okay, so if plain dot is greater than or equal to 0, let's just say greater than 0, then, and of course, because the plane's axis aligned, we probably could do all of this mainly in integer. The only thing that's not really an integer is the entity. But like doing the rotation in integer would be a giant pain. It's like a pathway that we don't have. So we're doing it in float. If plain dot is greater than 0, then we're just going to add this array add to clear comma it index. So we're just putting these indices, right? And then we don't need this anymore because we've got a thing. So we could have a split plane on the edge of the thing and be like, hey, we didn't find anything, right? In which case we don't want to make a new entity because remember we're splitting this, except we're not splitting it yet. We are just going to erase the guys. That's our good, like for me, good progress in making games is always to pick an easier task that is 99% in the same direction as your final task, right? So here we've identified the things on the plus side of the plane, and now we will just clear them and then regenerate the mesh. So we're going to say for to clear, what's it called? We say clear bit. Right, like that, and then we regenerate mesh wall set. Who knows what's going to happen? It could be a disaster. All right, ready? I'm going to go here. Oh, we forgot to do the thing where we don't do it if we're inside the circle. So that's a thing. Bam. Okay, well, we're off by 1. We also need to register this in the undo system. That's weird. We're off by 1. It's very strange. That wasn't off by 1. Maybe it's only in Z. That must have to do with the funny Z thing. Oh, right, because again, the position of the cube, when we do this, you know, the center of the cube is half a unit up, right? So I need to do that. All right, so let's do the thing where if split wall really active, okay. Maybe overridden below. Okay, if we're outside and we draw, then we set this to true. Okay, so now we'll only do the split. And we should have fixed the z problem, right? So here, no split, no split, no, no split, split. We win video games, basically, is what's going on. We win at video games. All right. Are there any questions about what is happening? I don't really see any chat anymore. Okay, it looks like the stream is still live. That's a relief. Are there any questions about what is happening? So the next step is, instead of erasing these cubes, we just want to put them in another thing, right? I'm trying to think of different ways to do this. A really cheap way to do it. Oh, we didn't put them into the undo, so I can't undo this yet. We'll fix that. A really cheap thing to do would be to just clone the entity, which we can do because it's like in our system, and then just erase some from one guy and some from the other guy. Like, I kind of like that idea. It's very simple. It's a little bit wasteful, but sometimes I am wasteful. Like, if stuff is not the stuff that really needs to be fast, then yeah. So we can clone them, and that'll be great. Although, that's not so good in terms of repositioning them after, because then you have like these entities that are already, I don't know. So I'm just representing each cube as a bit in a 3D bit array. Yes, that is exactly, well, it's a 1D bit array, right? I mean, officially, our data structure is a 1D bit array, but then there are dimensions, right, that say what the cube dimensions are, and then you map the 1D to 3D in the usual way that you would. Will those parts reconnect if you modify one of them without moving? I'm not sure what you mean. Make a circle a buzzsaw? Maybe. Maybe. So, oh, we got to do the undo. That's very easy. we're just going to say note change wall set split, right? Whoops. Other order. Yeah. So bam. Now that's in the undo, and we could undo it. See how good that is? See how good that is? Bam, bam, bam. And then just like Avengers Endgame, you can undo the destruction of the whole universe like it was nothing, because it's a superhero movie where nothing matters. You know what I'm saying? What's the second thing that we're trying to accomplish? Well, what we really want to do is, instead of having this delete the thing, we're going to have it split it into two meshes, right? So I'm just trying to think about now the best way to do that. How to split a 1 by 1 by z. Temporarily put a new cube and then split it and then remove the cube. How do you compile so quickly? Well, I do hit a hotkey to enter that line, right? Yeah. F7 is bound in the terminal program to run the command line to compile the thing. Would highlighting what will be deleted more clear? It might. Right now, I just want to go end to end with the functionality, and then we can think later about ways to make it better. It definitely might be more clear. It also would be more clear if you just, like I said, couldn't see this through the thing. But yeah, if we changed the other cubes to be a different color or whatever, it's just, that's not that easy. the way that things are set up. Wow. All right. So, all right. So when I pick the things, I could store the world space position of each cube, because we computed that to test the thing, right? And then, you know, I did write, yeah. Okay. That's fine, yeah. So we're going to do that. Yes, okay. We're not going to clone the entity. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to use some stuff that I wrote during work today to do the auto conversion. So I'm going to have a thing called new wall set, and we're going to have created that, right? Okay, so new wall set is going to be did I do that here? Yes. So here, I had this like flood fill search that looks for wall entities and turns them into wall sets and stuff. Okay, so I just said make we're going to figure out what the new center is, right? Yeah, we'll even set that as the selection so that you get some visual feedback. Okay. And then a lot of this is going to be similar to what this code does. So we have this like copy properties. We're going to move this down to the bottom. So like the color of the wall set and whether it's invisible or not should match the old one. So we're going to do that. All right. So we've got a to clear, and we're going to have a to create is going to be an array of vector 3i in world space. It's also going to be in temporary storage. Okay. Array add to create to v3i world pause. All right. So we do that. So now we make a new wall set. So we're going to say I0, I1 are vector 3i. Yeah, it's going to be just different enough, I think. So here we wouldn't. We already decided the position. Oh, here we took the centroid up here. Yeah, okay, well, integer coordinates here, okay. So basically, we're going to say, we're going to pick the centroid, right? So the centroid is going to be, sum is going to be a vector 3i. We're going to say for, what was it called? To create sum plus equals it. So we're adding together all the coordinates, right? We have to assert, or we should not be here. Oh, dot count, not dot items. Okay, so now we want to say new center float is 2v3 new center for sum, right? Divided by the float of to create dot count. Or I guess, I don't know if we have divided by is right. Anyway. Right, and then new center is going to be the rounded to integer version of that. And it might seem confusing to switching to float and back. The point is just when we do this division, we're going to get not exactly integer coordinates. So we're making our integer vector into a float vector. We're summing it as integer, then we're making it into a float for a second. We're dividing by the total number to get the average, right? That's how you compute an average. And in 3D, that gives you like the point in the middle of the points, sort of, for some definition of in the middle. We could also pick the bounding box and take the middlemost, but it's just not what I'm doing right now. Maybe we'll do that later. Okay, so then we convert it back to integer, and oh. Actually, and then here, we go back to float again, because that's just what entity management wants. But this is now float rounded to integer coordinates. Don't optimize out the 2v3i followed by 2v3, as that is what does the rounding. Okay, so we make a new wall set. We select it. Okay, so now we have the position for it. But we want to figure out, so the wall set, right, has this wall data, which is like the 3D volume where all the wall grids live. And we've now figured out sort of a center of that, but we haven't figured out the extent of that volume, right? And so we do that. And again, I'm wondering, yeah, I mean, again, this is like, this seems like I'm copy and pasting a lot of code, but probably this code is going to get deleted very soon. Like, mainly this code was just here for me to run it today. Like I was converting the whole game from walls to wall sets. And that's when I deleted the 90,000 entities that I mentioned today. So anyway, so we're doing basically the same thing as this, except again, for hygiene, our input numbers are like integer coordinates, which, you know what, is kind of stupid. Let's change that. Okay. It's just, okay, this is going to be vector 3, right? Okay, so this sum is a vector 3. We add, all right. Then we do that. This part is still the same, but these are in float. And the reason they're in float is because we want to do this world to object space thing here. Yeah. So new wall set is going to be located at new center. And down here, we're going to go, this I0 and I1 are going to contain the integer bounds relative to the object's position of where these cubes could be. They could be negative, they could be positive, right? So we're going to go world to object space of it. This is not called found. This is called to create. We're iterating back over to create again. We take the coordinates, we put it in integer, and we maybe expand. This is just a function that pushes out. This is the min and this is the max of this axis aligned bounding box in integer space, right? So once we have that, then we call this maybe expand, which expands, it's a little bit misleading, but naming, but this actually allocates and initializes the space, right? And then we do this. Okay. So for to create, now that we have memory to put these in, we redo this. Right? We could have cached this data or something, but we don't care right now. So we redo this same thing that we just did. But instead of expanding, we set the cell in the new wall set to true. And then we regenerate mesh, new wall set. We say we created it and we set the selection. All right. All right, let's see how we did. Now, this still isn't everything that we necessarily want to do, because the old wall set will have too loose of a bounding box, probably. So we may want to write a function to tighten up the graphics on level 3 on an old wall set. Okay, let's see what happens. Interesting. It moved it by 1. I mean, the data did survive. Why did it move it by 1? That's so weird. I guess because we snap. There's this thing where we snap entities if their coordinates are not. Like, are we somehow not giving it aligned coordinates? Anyway, bam. And it's in Z, by the way. So we're getting bit by the Z. Whoa, what was that? Oh, no, it's always going up by 1. So I bet we're returning something with Z 0.5, and it's just getting rounded up. So that's interesting. But, like, you know, it works. C programming isn't that hard. Maybe splitting would be clearer if the borders between blocks were instead borders between objects, i.e. no tile border. I don't understand. I do not understand your explanation. Anyway, this is great. We have the ability to split things. Bam. Okay, we just got to fix this. Let me just print out. Like, I am confused by this. No, it really is 2, 10, 3. So it happens before. It happens before, right? It's oh, because the world. Remember when I added 0.5 to the world pause? That's the center of the cube. I mean, this is slow, but whatever. Okay, wait. No, this is fine. We're just going to go here. So many offsets by a half a cube, dude. Okay. So, bam, bam, bam. See, we could program sometimes. We almost know how to program sometimes. And then I can undo these, and it's the same thing again. So ship it, man. We basically have our feature. Oh, okay, here's the thing, is we don't resize and recenter the original thing. And, okay, here's what I'm thinking. Instead of keeping the old entity, you know, I did this thing where we just erase bits from one of them and add bits to the other or make the other and bound it and stuff. If we put all that in a function, then we could just put cubes in either side, right? And then just destroy the old thing and create two new ones. That would be the fastest way to get this done. The thing is, we probably eventually want to be able to shrink the size of the thing, because if I start erasing stuff, we don't need as much of a grid around here. But you know what? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what to do. So if we keep the old entity, one thing that I'm thinking is, if you delete them both, or delete the old one and make two new ones, you add an extra source control operation, because like you're deleting a file and creating a file. But we could give one of them the same ID, I guess. Except not really. I mean, we do that in the editor when we recreate something. If I finished the big refactoring about @if, you mean static if? No, I want to do that soon. That's, you know, other stuff came up like this that it was a good idea to do. Okay. So let me just look in the editor how we do recreate. Because I believe we make a new thing with the old ID. This isn't the same thing. All right, that's not what I thought that was. Okay, I guess we don't do it that anymore. So recreate in older versions of the witness engine used to mean that we actually deleted the entity and replaced it. It doesn't mean that now. All right, you know what? We're just going to write the thing. We're just going to make a shrink bounds function. It won't take that long, actually. So let's do that. How do I know when it's correct? I guess we'll print the old bounds and the new bounds for now. Okay, so yeah. So we're going to say shrink bounds. All right. Oh, that's an editor also. It's not an editor. All right. So this is expand, right? And we kind of just want the inverse operation. Let's call it maybe shrink, because, you know, we might as well be consistent about our naming. All right. So maybe we shrink. And how do we do that? We'll go I0 and I1, vector 3i. Don't assume that the origin is inside the final extents, is inside the occupied extents. So don't just expand I0 and I1. Instead, set them from the first point. Okay. So first is true for only set wall data.bits. If first is false, I0 is IPOS, I1 is IPOS, else maybe expand, IPOS, is that the right argument? No, it's the other way. I0, I1, IPOS. What is IPOS? It's position, index to position, is that what it's called? Position from index. Wall data index, not iPod, IPOS, different thing. Okay, so if it's the first bit that is set, we copy our bounds from that, otherwise we maybe expand. Okay, now we don't just, okay, I started. See, I mean, okay. Yeah, it's basically the same operation as expand. See, here's the thing that I was thinking is the thing that is not good is that the position of, we're leaving the position of the entity in the same place, which maybe that is good. Maybe we don't want entities to move if you split them. But you know what? We probably do, if I'm being honest. And that makes me question this whole situation. Because this thing that we're doing right now is just figuring out new extents relative to the entity's base volume, which is totally fine. But it's like, you know, if we were gonna, there may be subtleties to this. So I'm actually not going to do it this way. You know what? We're going to want the ability to shrink. We want to be able to shrink when we delete blocks. What's in question is whether we auto move the entity's position. Not sure. Okay. So then down here, we just say maybe we cut and paste it. Maybe we factor it into a mutually usable function. But basically, once we've got the new dimensions, then we want to allocate the new data. We want to copy the bits from the old to the new data in the appropriate place. That's what this does for things that are expanding, and it's basically the same for things that are contracting. Okay. What I've decided, though, is I'm just going to go frickin' back to this thing and not do this way. So we're going to say, down here, we're going to say, new wall set is make wall set from wall set and to create, right? Because remember, we did all these things. I'm just going to factor this out. All right. So we're going to say make wall set we're getting an array of vector 3s, right? Okay. Going to make set copy properties. And instead of, okay. Returning that. And in theory, this is all the same, but I probably made a mistake. Yep, manager. Right. I'm just going to split by making two new things symmetrically because that is the simplest right now. If that makes a problem, we'll change the implementation later. But I don't want to worry about problems that may not be problems. You know what I'm saying? All right. So we're still splitting. But now, instead of just making one, I want to make two and delete the old one. So I'm going to say this is going to be positive set, right? Positive cubes, right? And then negative set from negative cubes, right? All right. Schedule for destruction. what's it called? Wall set. No, change destroyed wall set. So this will be much simpler when looking at this code because we're going to clean this stuff up, right? So here we say if the plane dot is greater than or equal to 0, instead of a toClear, forget that, right? We just say positive cubes, right? Else negative cubes, right? Get rid of toClear. If either of these is the empty set, then it wasn't a good split operation, right? Okay. So we get rid of toClear, we get rid of this, we get rid of this. So this is simpler and easier to understand, which is good. And it gives us new things in new positions with tighter bounds, right? So hopefully. So there we have a thing there, we have a thing there. So now let's try to make something pathological. I don't know. I mean, it's pretty good. Like, okay, so here, this point is way outside, right? So in the old way, unless we did a thing that corrected for, you know, repositioning, which I wasn't sure about, because we were keeping the old entity and just erasing stuff from it, even if we finish that resize function, this origin would still be way out here. But now if I split here, we should get this mass with the origin around here, and then this mass with the origin like around here somewhere, right? So let's try it. Split, boop. So this one has an origin, you know, in the middle, and that one has an origin in the middle. So I think that's fine. Now the issue is, like I said, we're creating an extra source control operation, but I'm not sure that that's worth really optimizing for, you know. Yeah, I think we might be done, dude. There's just a question about whether an edge picking UI would be better. But I don't know if I want to do that tonight. It's a little bit speculative. And I just want to get this feature into the mix and like let people use it, you know? So I think we are okay. I think this is literally shippable. All right. commit can split wall sets. So this is really great because, I mean, you guys didn't see what I was doing during the workday today, but I basically did the whole thing with all that code that goes through all the levels and auto converts all the walls into wall sets. I think I also did some other. No, I did not only that today, but I also like actually finished the wall set stuff. Like there was some UI stuff there that I finished and checked in. So I finished the wall set implementation. Then I did the auto converter. Then tonight in our wonderful post workday just chillin' session, we did the splitting. And that is everything that we needed to do to go work on larger levels. So we can work on larger levels now more easily. Why are there two circles? It was just a UI choice. Like one is the circle you're dragging and the other is the circle that says if you drag it to be that big, then you're actually doing the operation, otherwise you're not. No tests, no tests. We'll test it by using it. Yeah, this was a super good day, and I'm gonna be tired. We're coming right up on midnight. I'm gonna get some sleep. I do think this was a good enough stream to put on YouTube, so I'll probably do that tomorrow. Did I test undo on this? I'm pretty sure I did, but you know. So bam, that gives me a thing, and then bam, that gives me a thing, and then bam. So now we've got a bunch of entities, and like Control Z, Control Z, Control Z. It's all the same. Control Y, it's split. Control Y, it's split. Yeah. So undo's working. That's good. Let's test the invisibility. So if I make this, I'm sure this will work, but if this is invisible, right? So now I can only see it in ghost mode here, right? So then if I split it, both are still invisible. They're not visible if I'm in regular walking around dude mode. I can only see them in ghost mode. So the properties copied correctly. Yep, it's Miller time. It is Miller time. Won't just the color change of the dragged circle be sufficient? Well, because you don't necessarily know how far you're supposed to drag it. I don't know. It might be. Obviously I was not thinking super seriously about the UI. I just wanted to do something. And we have done that. Do the old cube walls no longer work? They no longer are created. Here's the thing. We don't want the old cubes anymore because they're just not efficient. The controls are the same, so if you tap X to make a cube, you still get that. It's just that now you can drag, right? And if you make something out in the middle of the ocean or whatever, it's its own wall set. That's all. So it shouldn't really, the only thing that, and you still hit Z to like melt them away one at a time, so that still works. If you melt a wall set down to nothing, you get an empty wall set right now, which maybe we should auto delete those. We'll see about that. The main thing that doesn't happen anymore is copy and paste one cube at a time, but that's just not a very nice way to make things. So in principle, it should be strictly better. Like, hey, if I want to duplicate this whole thing, I just copy and paste it, right? If I want to rotate this whole thing, I just do that. And this all works to the degree that I've tested it. So yeah, it should just be strictly better, And remember what I said about, hey, don't make this solid volume full of cubes because that's really inefficient for the engine. It's now way more efficient for the engine, so doing that kind of stuff is not a big deal either. It's fine. So yeah, this should just be better. We'll see. You know, it's a new UI, so you always expect a little bit in the way of things that need to be done to make it nicer. But I think it'll be good, especially when it comes to bigger levels, but even smaller levels. Like it's just so much faster to like whip something together like this. I mean, now I've got intersecting shapes, but you know, this like it's going to be so much more enjoyable making levels. And you know what? Here's the thing. All of us, so you know, in order to be effective at game development, I've cultivated my personal style over the years. And part of that style is don't rat hole that much on tools, just make the game happen, right? But I have to admit that the optimal amount to work on tools is probably a little bit more, at least, than I tend to. Like my calibration is off. So, I mean, doing the individual cube thing was probably fine in the beginning, but this kind of drag operation, even if this wasn't a wall set data structure, even if this drag operation created a bunch of cubes and we were like, okay, I'll fix it later, that would have been really good for building levels like a long time ago. So, yeah. I just noticed that this is wrong. It's not a big deal, but it's starting the drag inside this cube. I'm not going to fix it tonight because I'm tired, but fix cube drag. It's once again going to be like a Z offset thing. That's why like here we're in the right place. I bet from under we're not, right? Oh no, we are. So we're only correct in Z for some frickin' reason. That's weird. Anyway, I'll fix that tomorrow. It's true. So with the programming language, we're definitely putting way more than my usual amount of tools work in. That is undeniable. But yeah, on the witness, I didn't put as much work into tools as early as I should have, and so we suffered some inefficiencies from that. Same here. We've made like 400 levels, and we're gonna make at least a few hundred more, so it's fine. But like, yeah, it would have been nicer. Would have been nicer if we had just this, just what I have today. And you know what? This part of it only took about a day. So would I have saved at least a day in level making with that? Yes. And well, probably, I don't know for sure, but probably. And it would have been more enjoyable anyway. So I don't know, man. You feel the same about some things you recently added to your level editor? Yeah. So now the only issue is just, when I got started in games, it was very common for people to rat hole on editor features or game features and like never have an actual game, right? So I'm correcting for that, but you always have to correct your corrections. It's like, okay, I've learned how to ship games and that's not a danger anymore, so we don't have to overcorrect for that danger, Yeah. 1,001 levels, oh man. I mean, maybe, but that would be a huge game. Sokoban will be bigger than Witness. Change your mind. I don't know if I would change your mind. I mean, I think it's going to be bigger in most. Like, I'm not sure. I would expect that the package size, like the data size, will be bigger. Will it have more puzzles? Probably. It is likely that this game will have more puzzles than The Witness. Will it take longer to play if you're a completionist? Probably. So yeah, that's just where we're at. Did it pass all level tests? We have about 10 fails right now, but they're known fails that we're not trying to fix. Will there be some Escher type levels? No comments. Do you think we'll get to the point where we have a good general purpose editor like this for many games in the near future, or do we need to keep making custom editors? Well, so there are different kinds of games. So for a grid-based game like this, you really want a grid-based situation, you know? Whereas for first-person shooter, you want a different thing, right? So Unreal and Unity are basically trying to be the general editors for everyone, and they're just really complicated and they have a lot of problems and they're annoying to use. So the nice thing about making your own game is you can make your tools be what you need. And the goodness of that is hard to understate. Any plans for cooperative play? Not over the network. I think in this game, cooperative play is you and your friend sitting together by the computer. Approximate ship date, no idea. Literally no idea. All right, folks. What if you make your tools for Unity? I mean, you can do that, but at some point you're still limited by what Unity provides for you in the way of conceptualization, right? I mean, you can always do that. You can remap Unity's stuff to something very different, but you start making a squishy tower, right? This is the thing I always try to communicate to people is when you pile abstractions on other abstractions, it doesn't totally work. It kind of works. And if they're too far apart, you know, the further apart they are, the more problems you have. So, yeah. Anyway, thank you everybody for coming by. I'm going to bed.